What if I told you that everything you think you know about demons is wrong? What if the terrifying entities that whisper in the dark, that haunt the desolate places of the world, and that seek to possess the bodies of the living, are not what you've been led to believe? Forget the popular image of the fallen angel, the rebellious cherub cast out of heaven with Lucifer. That story, the one you see in movies and read in epic poems, is a dramatic simplification, a shadow of a much older, much stranger, and infinitely more terrifying truth. The real source of what the Bible calls unclean spirits is not a legion of angelic beings who fell from grace. It is the lingering, disembodied, and ravenous spiritual residue of a monstrous race that once walked the earth. They are the hungry ghosts of the giants, the disembodied souls of the Nephilim. This isn't just a wild theory. This is a secret hidden in plain sight, encoded within the earliest chapters of Genesis, and spelled out explicitly in ancient texts that were deemed too dangerous, too paradigm-shattering to be included in our modern Bible. We have been fighting the wrong enemy, or rather, we have misunderstood our enemy entirely. The beings that Jesus cast out, the spirits that screamed his identity, the entities that begged not to be sent into the abyss, but into a herd of swine. Their behavior makes perfect, horrifying sense once you understand their true origin. They are not fallen angels. They are the damned, wandering souls of the unnatural offspring born from a forbidden union between heaven and earth. To understand this, we must first deconstruct the myth we've been sold. Where did we get the idea that all demons are fallen angels, while it's true that Satan, or Lucifer, is depicted as a high-ranking angel who rebelled against God and was cast out? The Bible is surprisingly silent on the idea that he took a third of the angelic host with him to become a roaming army of demons on earth. The primary passage people point to is in Revelation, chapter 12, where the great red dragon sweeps a third of the stars from the sky with its tail. For centuries, this has been interpreted as Satan leading a rebellion of angels. But a closer look reveals that this is a symbolic apocalyptic vision about a war in heaven that results in Satan being cast down to the earth, not a historical account of the origin of demons who possess people. The context is eschatological. It is about the end times, not the beginning. Now, consider the writings of Jude and 2 Peter. These New Testament books speak very clearly about angels who sinned. But what do they say happened to them? 2 Peter 2-4 says, "For if God did not spare angels when they sinned, but cast them into hell, and committed them to chains of gloomy darkness to be kept until the judgment." Jude 6 echoes this almost perfectly. "And the angels who did not keep their own domain, but abandoned their proper abode, he has kept in eternal bonds under darkness for the judgment of the great day." Notice the language. They are bound. They are in chains. They are kept in darkness, reserved for a future judgment. This does not sound like a description of the free, roaming demons we see in the Gospels, who wander dry places and desperately seek to inhabit a physical body. If the angels who sinned are already imprisoned, then who or what are these other malevolent spirits? There is a clear distinction being made, one that modern theology has largely papered over. There are the bound fallen angels, imprisoned for a specific terrible crime. And then there are the unclean spirits, the demons, who plague humanity. They are two different classes of entity. To find the origin of the second group, we have to go back. Back before the law of Moses, before Abraham, back to the world before the great flood. We must travel to the 6th chapter of Genesis, to a passage that is so strange, so unsettling, that many have tried to explain it away as mere metaphor. But what if it's not a metaphor? What if it's a literal, terrifying account of a cosmic crime that nearly destroyed all of creation? Genesis 6, verses 1-4. "When man began to multiply on the face of the land and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of man were attractive, and they took as their wives any they chose." The Nephilim were on the earth in those days. And also afterward, when the sons of God came in to the daughters of man, and they bore children to them. They were the mighty men who were of old, the men of renown. Let's stop and dissect this. Who are these sons of God? For centuries, a dominant interpretation, especially in modern times, has tried to soften this passage, suggesting that the sons of God were merely the righteous descendants of Seth, and the daughters of men were the wicked descendants of Cain. This interpretation domesticates the text. It makes it safe, it removes the scandal, but it makes absolutely no sense in the context. Why would a marriage between two groups of humans, even righteous and wicked ones, produce a race of giants called the Nephilim? Why would this act be so singularly horrific that it is presented as the primary catalyst for God deciding to wipe out the entire world with a flood? A marriage between different bloodlines, however ill-advised, is a purely human affair. This was something else entirely. The ancient world understood this passage very differently. For the Jewish writers of the Second Temple period and for the early church fathers, there was no ambiguity. The sons of God, the Beni Elohim, were divine beings. They were angels. This wasn't a fringe idea. It was the mainstream understanding for centuries. And we don't have to guess about the details, because an ancient book, a text once revered by early Christians and quoted by Jude in the New Testament itself, gives us a full, horrifying eyewitness account. That text is the Book of Enoch. While not included in the final canonical Bible for most denominations, the Book of Enoch was considered sacred scripture by many early Jewish and Christian communities. It was found amongst the Dead Sea Scrolls, proving its antiquity and importance, and it tells the story of the sons of God in chilling detail. It calls them the Watchers. Imagine a celestial order of angels tasked with watching over humanity, guiding them, protecting them. But they didn't just watch. They lusted. A leader among them, an angel named Semjaza, convinced 200 of his brethren to abandon their heavenly station, their proper abode, as the Book of Jude puts it, and descend to the earth. They made a pact binding themselves with oaths on Mount Hermon to commit a synchronized cosmic transgression. They came to the daughters of men. This was not a romance. It was a violation of cosmic law. These beings, made of spirit, took on physical form and mingled their divine essence with mortal flesh. They taught humanity forbidden knowledge, not just arts and sciences, but dark arts. They revealed the secrets of sorcery, the making of weapons, the art of seduction, astrology, and enchantments. It was a deliberate act of corruption, a poisoning of God's creation at the genetic and spiritual level. They didn't just break a rule, they attacked the very blueprint of humanity. They sought to hijack the human project. And from this monstrous, unsanctioned union, a new form of life was born, the Nephilim. The word itself is often translated as giants, but its Hebrew root, nephol, means to fall. They were the fallen ones, but not in the sense of angels falling from heaven. They were the physical embodiment of a fallen, corrupted creation. The offspring of this unholy merger were not just big humans. They were terrifying hybrids, beings that belonged neither to heaven nor to earth. The Book of Enoch describes them in horrific terms. They were giants, some towering hundreds of feet tall, with an insatiable appetite. Imagine the horror of the antediluvian world. These creatures consumed all the produce of the land, all the livestock. When the food ran out, they turned on the animals, drinking their blood. And when the animals were gone, they turned on humanity itself, devouring people. Finally, they turned on each other, practicing cannibalism. This was a world overrun by monsters. The very genetic code of life on earth was being corrupted. These were not the mighty men of old, men of renown in a heroic sense, as some translations might imply. They were renowned for their terror, their violence, their abomination. They were a biological and spiritual dead end. A hybrid entity that had the spiritual nature of their angelic fathers, but was bound to a physical body of flesh like their human mothers. They possessed immense power, but they had no spirit in the human sense, no soul created in the image of God. They had no hope of redemption, no place in the divine plan. They were a mistake, a monstrous, world-devouring mistake. Think of the ancient myths from around the world, the Greek Titans, the Hindu Asuras, the Norse Jotnar. Are these just stories? Or are they the fragmented, distorted cultural memories of a real historical terror that once plagued the entire planet? a time when gods walked the earth and bred monsters with mortals. Genesis and Enoch suggest they are a memory of a horrifying reality. Now do you see the context for the Great Flood? It wasn't just because humanity had become wicked, though they had. The text says the earth was filled with violence, that all flesh had corrupted its way. The flood was a desperate act of divine surgery. It was a cosmic cleansing. God had to sterilize the planet to eradicate this tainted genetic line. The Nephilim and their corrupted offspring had to be wiped out to preserve the pure human lineage through which the promised Messiah, the seed of the woman, could one day be born. If the Nephilim bloodline had been allowed to continue, it would have contaminated all of humanity, making the incarnation of Christ impossible. The stakes were that high. The flood wasn't just punishment, it was a rescue mission for the future of the human race. So the waters rose. The fountains of the great deep burst forth, and the windows of heaven were opened. The entire world was submerged. The monstrous bodies of the Nephilim, along with the corrupted humans and animals, were destroyed. Their physical forms were washed away, their flesh dissolved. But what happened to their spirits? This is the key. This is the core of the entire mystery. This is the truth that has been hidden from you. They were not human souls, so they could not go to the place reserved for the spirits of dead men. They were not angelic beings, so they could not be judged and bound with their fathers, the Watchers, who were already chained in the abyss. They were a hybrid, an anomaly. Their spirits, born of angel and human, had no designated place to go in the afterlife. They were trapped. Their massive, powerful bodies were gone, but their ravenous, violent, and immortal spiritual nature remained. They became disembodied spirits, forever bound to the earthly realm they once dominated. And here is the forbidden secret, the truth hidden in plain sight within the censored pages of Enoch. Chapter 15 of the Book of Enoch gives the explicit, chilling answer. God speaks to the disembodied spirits of the giants, and he says, "And now, the giants, who are produced from the spirits and flesh, shall be called evil spirits upon the earth, and on the earth shall be their dwelling." Evil spirits have proceeded from their bodies, because they are born from men, and from the holy watchers is their beginning and primal origin. They shall be evil spirits on earth, and evil spirits shall they be called. And the spirits of the giants afflict, oppress, destroy, attack, do battle and work destruction on the earth, and cause trouble. They take no food, but nevertheless hunger and thirst, and cause offenses. And these spirits shall rise up against the children of men and against the women, because they have proceeded from them. From the days of the slaughter and destruction and death of the giants, from the souls of whose flesh the spirits, having gone forth, shall destroy without incurring judgment. Thus shall they destroy until the day of the consummation, the great judgment in which the age shall be consummated. Read those words again. It could not be clearer. The spirits of the dead giants became the demons, the evil spirits that would plague humanity. The text spells it out. They hunger, but cannot eat. They thirst, but cannot drink. They are tormented by their disembodied state. And what is the one thing a disembodied spirit, a ghost stripped of its form, would crave above all else? A body, a vessel, a way to interact with the physical world again. A way to satisfy its unending, unnatural appetites. Now, with this terrifying knowledge, let's reopen the New Testament. Let's look at the ministry of Jesus and the apostles through this new lens. Suddenly, everything clicks into place. The Gospels are filled with encounters with what are called unclean spirits or demons. Think about their behavior. They are defined by their desperation for a physical host. The demoniac of Gadara, a man possessed by a multitude of these spirits who called themselves Legion, lived among the tombs, the place of the dead. It's a fitting home for the spirits of a dead race. When Jesus commands them to leave the man, what is their desperate plea? They beg him not to send them out of the country, not to send them into the abyss, the very place their angelic fathers were imprisoned. They know they don't belong there yet. Instead, they beg to be allowed to enter a herd of pigs. They would rather inhabit the body of an unclean animal than face the void of being truly disembodied. Why would a powerful fallen angel, a being of pure spirit, be so desperate for the body of a pig? it makes little sense. But for the hungry, homeless ghost of a Nephilim, a creature of voracious physical appetites, it makes perfect sense. Any port in a storm, any body to escape the torment of formlessness. Consider the language used. The term is almost always unclean spirit. Why unclean? Because they are the product of an unclean, unholy union. They are intrinsically impure, a spiritual contamination. In Mark's Gospel, an unclean spirit cries out to Jesus, "What have you to do with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God." They recognize him immediately. Of course they do. They are the lingering remnants of the very cosmic rebellion that he came to earth to ultimately defeat. They represent the corruption of the first Adam's world, and he is the second Adam come to restore it. His very presence is a threat to their existence. They wander, as Jesus says in Matthew 12, through dry places, seeking rest and finding none. This is a perfect description of a wandering, homeless ghost. They are tormented, and their only goal is to torment humanity in turn, to possess, to afflict, to destroy, because that is their nature, inherited from their violent, monstrous origins. This reframes the entire concept of demonic possession. It is not an angel possessing a person. It is the spirit of a dead giant, a Nephilim, attempting to reclaim the physical existence it lost in the flood. It is a parasitic relationship. These spirits are drawn to vice, to trauma, to spiritual openness, because these things create a foothold, a crack in the soul through which they can enter and attach themselves. They seek to live through humans, to experience sensation again, to indulge the insatiable hunger that defines their very being. This explains the often violent, self-destructive, and degrading behavior of those who are possessed. The host body is being used to satisfy the ancient, monstrous appetites of its spiritual parasite. This understanding also clarifies why exorcism was such a central part of Jesus' ministry. He wasn't just healing people, he was cleansing the land. He was continuing the work of the flood on a spiritual level, binding and casting out the lingering remnants of the antediluvian corruption. He was reclaiming territory, one soul at a time. When the 72 disciples returned to him, overjoyed, saying, "Lord, even the demons are subject to us in your name," Jesus replies with a cryptic and profound statement, "I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven." He connects their authority over these earth-bound evil spirits with the ultimate defeat of the cosmic rebel, who orchestrated the entire mess from the beginning. The battle against the roaming spirits of the giants is a proxy war in the larger battle against their ultimate master. So, we have two distinct groups of fallen entities in this cosmic drama. First, you have Satan and the high, ranking angels who rebelled in heaven. Their story is one of pride and a war for cosmic control. They are strategists, tempters, the masterminds behind the scenes. They are the principalities, the powers, the rulers of the darkness of this world that Paul talks about in Ephesians. And then you have their foot soldiers, the result of their first great attack on humanity, the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim. These are the demons, the unclean spirits. They are not the generals, they are the tormented, ravenous, and chaotic infantry. They are the direct, lingering consequence of that ancient, forbidden mingling of realms. This paradigm shift is profound. It means the evil we face is not just some abstract theological concept. It has a history, it has a biology of a sort. It is rooted in a specific historical event of cosmic treason. The demonic is the echo of a prehistoric scream, the ghost of a monster. It connects the strange stories of Genesis, the flood, and the giants directly to the very real spiritual battles described in the New Testament. It bridges the gap between the old and the new. It explains why the world before the flood was so corrupt it had to be destroyed. And it gives a chillingly precise identity to the enemy that Jesus fought and gave his followers authority over. Why was this knowledge suppressed? Why was the Book of Enoch, once so influential, left out of the canon? Perhaps the truth was too shocking. It was easier to conflate all evil spirits into one category of fallen angels. It was cleaner, simpler. But in simplifying, we lost the terrifying specificity of the threat. We lost the direct connection to our own history. We forgot that the earth we walk on was once the domain of monsters, and that their hungry ghosts still wander here, seeking a way back in. This isn't just lore, it is intelligence on the enemy, understanding their origin, that they are the disembodied spirits of a hybrid race, explains their motives, their methods, and their weaknesses. They are driven by a hunger for embodiment that they can never truly satisfy. They are terrified of the final judgment that awaits them, and they are utterly powerless before the authority of the one who created all things, and who has already defeated their progenitor. The world is older and stranger than we imagine. The stories in the Bible are not sanitized fables, they are echoes of a deep and often violent cosmic history. The evil that haunts our world is not a new invention. It is an ancient curse, the spiritual fallout from a crime committed at the dawn of time. The demons that torment humanity are the hungry ghosts of the giants, the Nephilim, the unnatural spawn of angels and men. They are the true source of the unclean spirits. And now you know. The question is, what will you do with this forbidden knowledge?